Sometimes greatness doesn't whisper. It stares the world in the eye and refuses to blink. Before there were movements and hashtags, before women could demand equal pay or the right to create their own stories, there was one woman who embodied defiance in heels and eyeliner. Her name was Bette Davis, and she wasn't built to be agreeable. She was built to be unforgettable. Born Ruth Elizabeth Davis in 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts, she arrived in a world that believed ambition was not a woman's virtue. Her father left when she was 7, leaving her mother to raise 2 daughters alone. It was a time when survival itself felt like rebellion. Yet, even as a child, Bette radiated certainty. She would later recall how, standing in the wings of her high school play, she decided that acting would be her life. Not because it promised fame, but because it gave her what reality could not: freedom. She studied every human gesture, every glance, every flicker of emotion, as if life itself were rehearsal. When she went to New York to study at John Murray Anderson's dramatic school, her teachers noted she had more will than beauty. She wasn't the type to blend in. She was the type who made blending in impossible. One early director warned her that audiences wanted their actresses soft and sweet. She smiled, then delivered a performance so fierce it silenced the room. She once said, "Acting is the ability to express others' opinions as if they were your own." Those words became her creed. For Bette, acting wasn't pretending. It was empathy on fire. Hollywood, however, wasn't ready for empathy. When she arrived at Universal Studios in 1930, executives saw only a plain girl with big eyes and too much nerve. They considered dropping her before her first screen test. No one met her at the train station when she arrived. No driver, no assistant, nothing. She later joked, "I knew I'd never get anywhere if I didn't get myself somewhere first." That was Bette's first lesson in power. No one will hand you the stage. You have to claim it. The early years were cruel. Her first films were forgettable. Critics called her wooden. But she watched, learned, adapted. Every rejection sharpened her. She said, "I don't want to make it easy. I want it real." And slowly, the industry began to see that this woman's authenticity could not be faked. Her breakout came in 1934 with Of Human Bondage. The studio didn't even want her for the role. Too harsh, too plain, they said, but she fought for it. Her portrayal of a manipulative waitress shocked audiences with its rawness. She was nominated for an Oscar, and overnight, Hollywood had to admit what it saw. Bette Davis was different. She didn't play women who smiled through pain. She played women who showed it. Success, however, did not tame her. Warner Brothers signed her to a long-term contract, and she became one of their biggest stars. But the system was suffocating. Actors had no control over their scripts, no say in their characters, and could be suspended without pay for refusing roles. Bette wanted more than stardom. She wanted choice. When the studio forced her into films she considered mediocre, she did the unthinkable. She walked away. In 1936, she sued Warner Brothers to break her contract. The newspapers called it madness. A woman challenging the studio machine was unheard of. Jack Warner dismissed her as hysterical. But Bette wasn't hysterical. She was historic. In court, she argued that an artist must have the right to protect her craft. "If I have to crawl," she said, "I'll crawl to get what I want." She lost the case legally, but won it morally. Afterward, Warner gave her better scripts, knowing she would rather risk ruin than mediocrity. That lawsuit cracked open a door that later generations of actors, male and female, would walk through. Her comeback was thunderous. Dangerous, 1935, earned her first Academy Award, and Jezebel, 1938, her second. In Jezebel, she embodied a Southern woman defying social rules. It was rebellion wrapped in lace. She wasn't acting rebellion, she was rebellion, and the world couldn't look away. She once told a young performer, "You will never be happier than when you do what you were born to do." It's easy to quote, harder to live. Bette lived it every day. She rejected the glamour roles others coveted and chose characters that scared her. Women with contradictions, with fire, with flaws. When critics said she was too brash, she leaned in harder. "If everyone likes you," she quipped, "you're doing something wrong." Through the 1940s, she dominated Hollywood's golden age. The Letter, now Voyager, Dark Victory, each film a study in human complexity. Off-screen, she battled executives who tried to diminish her and reporters who tried to define her. She refused to let anyone else narrate her story. And then came All About Eve, 1950, her masterpiece. Playing Margot Channing, an aging stage star confronting youth and irrelevance, Bette delivered dialogue so sharp it cut through time. "Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night." The line became iconic because it wasn't just written. It was lived. She was speaking for every woman told her best days were behind her. The performance earned her yet another Oscar nomination and sealed her legend. Still, fame didn't protect her from the industry's cruelty. As she aged, the scripts thinned, the praise quieted. But she never begged for roles. She created them. In 1962, she teamed with Joan Crawford in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, a macabre story of rivalry that mirrored Hollywood itself. Critics called it her grand resurrection. She was 54, and her career had been declared dead more than once. But as she liked to say, "I survived because I was tougher than anybody else." That toughness wasn't armor. It was awareness. She knew the world rarely applauds women who refuse to conform. She also knew that fear was a weapon others used to keep you still. "Getting old is not for sissies," she laughed in later years. And it was true. She kept working, appearing in film after film, sometimes brilliant, sometimes modest, but always unmistakably Bette. Off camera, her words carried as much power as her performances. She mentored younger actresses, telling them, "Don't let the bastards get you down." She warned them that Hollywood would always reward obedience before originality, and that real power came from saying no. In an interview, she said, "It's better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you're not." That line could serve as the motto of her life. Behind her wit was philosophy. She believed that acting and living meant commitment. To believe completely in the moment you're in. To risk embarrassment for truth. That's what she meant when she defined acting as expressing others' opinions as if they were your own. She knew art demanded vulnerability disguised as confidence. The courage she showed on screen came from the solitude she knew off screen. Her marriages failed, her health faltered, and at times she was broke. But even when illness took her strength, she refused pity. She told reporters, "I'm just too busy to die." That was her humor, defiance dressed as a punchline. Her colleagues respected her not only for her talent, but for her nerve. Directors said she never settled for good enough. She would shoot a scene 20 times if it meant finding the emotional truth. Crew members sometimes feared her temper, but they also adored her precision. When a journalist once accused her of arrogance, she smiled and said, "Of course I'm proud. If I weren't, I'd have been eaten alive." What made Bette Davis extraordinary wasn't perfection, it was persistence. She kept showing up, long after others would have retired, because she couldn't imagine life without creation. Acting was her language, rebellion her accent. In later years, when asked what advice she would give young women, she answered without hesitation, "Don't be afraid to fight. Men fight for everything they want. Why shouldn't we?" That spirit reshaped an entire industry. Without Bette's lawsuit, her courage, her fury, there might not be the creative independence that actors now take for granted. By the time she passed in 1989, she had made over 100 films, received 10 Academy Award nominations, and redefined what it meant to be a leading lady. But the real measure of her success wasn't gold statues. It was the thousands of women who watched her and thought, "Maybe I can be that brave." Her story isn't just a film reel of triumphs. It's a manual for integrity. It teaches that talent needs courage to survive, that honesty often sounds like rebellion, and that power belongs to those who demand it. Even near the end of her career, Bette Davis refused to let time or opinion define her. In one interview, she smiled that unmistakable half-smile and said, "The only way to enjoy anything in this life is to earn it first." Those words captured her truth. Every line on her face, every scar on her heart, every award on her shelf, she earned them all through fight, not favor. When younger actresses complained about Hollywood's double standards, she didn't lecture them. She simply said, "You get what you accept." To Bette, acceptance was surrender. She believed that if you allowed the world to underestimate you, it gladly would. Her whole life was a lesson in demanding more, from herself and from everyone around her. After All About Eve, when most actresses would have rested on their reputation, Bette Davis began another war, the battle against invisibility. The industry loved youth and novelty. She was neither. Yet she refused to fade quietly. She began taking stage work again, proving that talent doesn't expire. "To me," she once explained, "acting should be bigger than life. It should be about the truth that people are afraid to see." In the 1950s and 60s, she worked constantly, sometimes in small films that critics dismissed, but she treated each part as a fresh climb. And in her later interviews, she said, "I was never a beautiful woman, but I always knew how to be interesting." That was her secret weapon. She understood that presence outlasts prettiness. She would rather be unforgettable than adored. Her friendship-turned-rivalry with Joan Crawford became legendary. The tabloids fed on it, but Bette saw something deeper. "Competition," she said, "keeps you honest. You learn who you are when someone else wants your crown." It wasn't bitterness. It was belief that fire refines gold. And in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, she used that rivalry as fuel, giving a performance so raw it reminded everyone why she was still queen of the screen. Yet, even queens bleed. Behind the scenes, she was caring for her mother, raising her children alone, struggling with money and illness. Fame, she knew, couldn't protect you from life. "Fame will come and go," she told a reporter, "but the work, that's what stays." That line could be engraved on every studio wall, because Bette Davis didn't chase celebrity, she chased craft. In 1962, when she placed an ad in Variety that read, "Mother of 3, divorced American, seeks steady employment in Hollywood," it wasn't self-pity, it was a challenge. Within weeks, the phone rang with new offers. The world respected honesty when it came wrapped in courage. Her work ethic bordered on sacred. She believed that passion must have discipline to become power. "Without discipline," she said, "talent is just wishful thinking." On set, she arrived hours early, rehearsed until exhaustion, and treated every crew member with the same respect she expected for herself. To young actors, she gave one commandment: bring the truth every time. The camera knows when you're lying. Even as her health declined, she refused retirement. Cancer surgery stole part of her strength. Strokes took part of her mobility, but nothing took her will. In her 80s, she was still attending award ceremonies, still accepting honors, still smoking a cigarette and delivering one-liners that could knock a man down. At the American Film Institute tribute, she told the crowd, "Old age is no place for sissies." The audience roared because they knew she had earned the right to say it. Bette's defiance was never anger, it was purpose. She understood something most people forget. Courage doesn't mean absence of fear, it means refusing to let fear decide the ending. "Courage is fear that has said its prayers," she once said quietly in an interview. That sentence carries her whole life. Pain acknowledged, faith still standing. Her philosophy stretched beyond acting. She believed that a woman's voice, in any profession, was a revolutionary act. "A strong woman," she declared, "is one who feels deeply and loves fiercely. Her tears flow as abundantly as her laughter." For her, strength and emotion were not opposites. They were partners. She wanted women to know they could lead without losing tenderness. When you look at her films now, Dark Victory now, Voyager, The Letter, All About Eve, you see not just stories, but sermons in resilience. Each character mirrored a piece of Bette Davis herself. The defiance, the vulnerability, the refusal to disappear. She transformed personal pain into universal language. That is why her work still feels alive decades later. Because truth doesn't age. In later years, Bette's interviews turned almost prophetic. When asked about fame, she said, I am grateful for everything I have had, and for what I didn't have too, because it taught me hunger. She spoke about failure with a kind of affection. The key to success is work. The key to failure is trying to please everybody. Those words should be carved into every creative heart. She often joked that Hollywood didn't make stars, it tested them. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going, she'd say. And she lived it. She didn't inherit power. She earned it one performance at a time, one battle at a time, one truth at a time. Bette Davis was not perfect. She could be stubborn, sharp, and difficult. But perhaps that was her most valuable lesson. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. She once admitted, "I have been hated and loved, but never ignored, and that suits me fine." That sentence sums up her legacy. Better to provoke thought than to invite indifference. Her final public message came not from a film, but from her autobiography, This and That. In it, she wrote, "To fulfill a dream, to be allowed to sweat over lovely labor, to be given the chance to create, is the meat and potatoes of life." Those words are pure nourishment for anyone chasing a dream today. They remind us that fulfillment isn't applause, it's effort. Imagine her voice echoing to every artist, every young woman, every person told they're too much or too loud. Don't shrink, don't wait, don't apologize. She'd tell you to throw yourself into the fire because that's where diamonds are made. She'd remind you that comfort never created history. Even after her death in 1989, her influence refuses to fade. Every actress who fights for better scripts, every performer who demands creative control, every person who refuses to let labels define them, each of them carries a spark she lit decades ago. Her daughter once said that Bette lived with a kind of restless faith that tomorrow's challenge would always be harder, and that was a good thing. Because growth, for Bette Davis, was the point. She might have been born in 1908, but she thought like someone from the future, a woman who believed talent has no gender, strength has no age, and truth has no expiration date. If she could speak to us now, she'd probably repeat one of her favorite lines. Take chances. Don't be afraid to fall on your face. That's where the lessons live. She would look at the dreamers of today, actors, artists, entrepreneurs, and say, stop waiting for permission. The world belongs to those who dare to act. Her life was proof that rebellion, when rooted in authenticity, becomes legacy. Every time you choose honesty over approval, you honor her. Every time you stand your ground, you echo her voice. So remember her not as the woman with the eyes that could freeze a room, but as the soul who taught Hollywood and the rest of us that integrity is the highest form of art. She said once, to look back is to risk being turned into a pillar of salt. So keep moving forward, keep creating, keep fighting for what you believe in. Because the spirit of Bette Davis lives wherever courage speaks louder than fear. She showed us that greatness isn't granted. It's earned word by word, role by role, choice by choice. And maybe her greatest legacy is this simple truth. You don't need to be liked to make history. You need to be brave enough to be real. Brave enough to be real. Brave enough to be real.